again time for our press review. Solange Moujon joining us again. Hello, Solange.
Hi, Will.
Beginning with news of the attack on the Kabul airport in Afghanistan, making front pages across the globe.
Yeah, and in the press there is one image in particular that is being picked up by newspapers across the world, and it is of the horror of the Kabul attack. It shows, as we can see on the front page of El País, the image is of two Afghan women with bloodied hands and faces heading to the hospital. They are reeling from the horrors that they've experienced. Now, the Daily Mirror, it has also run with this image, calling the attack barbaric. Now, perhaps the papers have chosen this image in particular because of the number of women and children that were killed in the attack, but also because of so much uncertainty and heartbreak over the plight of women in Afghanistan, a subject, as we know, that France 24 is covering extensively today.
Yeah, and you've been reading the press and getting a lot of attention as well is the American casualties. 13 U.S. soldiers were killed, 15 wounded in the attack.
Yeah, for the Washington Post's editorial board, the attack is a reminder of the risk that thousands of American soldiers are taking in this rescue mission. Quote, "These are dark hours," the paper says, all the while calling for new questions to be asked and raised over the wisdom of withdrawing now and how the withdrawal was organized. But the New York Times, well, it takes another stance. In an opinion piece by Ezra Klein, he argues that there was no good way to lose here. The columnist goes through other possible exit strategies, including the possibility of an endless occupation, he says, all of which he argues could possibly have been worse. And Klein concludes that the deeper problem isn't the withdrawal per se or the tragic attack, but, quote, a failure of decades of American foreign policy in Afghanistan.
Yeah, a big picture look there. Meanwhile, the conservative press in the United States really zeroing in on President Biden.
Yeah, well, the National Review, it says that Joe Biden's speech was, quote, a jumbled and incoherent set of remarks, but that there was a hint, they say, of a message here. The Review argues that Biden's press conference was meant to prepare the American public for U.S. citizens to be abandoned in the country. And the conservative cartoonist Michael DeAdder, well, he also highlights this in a cartoon for the Toronto Star. He has a U.S. soldier scratching out, "Leave no one behind," and instead writing, "Leave some behind." Now, the Washington Times, it was no kinder about Biden's press conference, using a head-bowing image of the president. It has gone viral, actually, among the conservative media, which is rejecting the notion that Donald Trump created the terms of this evacuation. Instead, the conservative paper argues that Biden, quote, has put all his chips on the Taliban, end quote, and that right now he does not look very competent. And it's not just the American press, American conservative press, that has its knives out for Joe Biden's handling of the withdrawal and the attack. The Brazilian paper Folha de Sao Paulo, it argues that ending this war could sink Biden politically. For the paper argues that he is now going to have to align himself with the Taliban to try and combat ISIS-K.
Yeah, ISIS-K, the group that has claimed responsibility for Thursday's attacks, and the press covering and looking into just who are ISIS-K.
Yeah, the Wall Street Journal, it explains that a war between the Taliban and ISIS-K has been raging for a while now as a sort of hidden parallel conflict that's been going on behind the scenes. And in that vein, The Hill, the political site in Washington, well, they interviewed a former U.S. ambassador who said, quote, "The war is yet to come in Afghanistan, that violence is likely to rage on long after the U.S. withdrawal." Now, this is a stance as well that The Guardian takes on. For the paper argues that such attacks and the U.S. withdrawal have, quote, emboldened the Islamic State group affiliates and regional terrorist groups. So essentially, as Ann Telnies of the Washington Post puts it, Biden may be ending a 20-year war, one created and bungled largely by his predecessors, but the wheels of war, as she calls her cartoon, are going to keep going around and around.
Well, let's shift gears now to something a bit more hopeful.
Yeah, there's potentially been an important breakthrough. Some good news here. There's potentially been an important breakthrough when it comes to malaria, which is one of the top killers of children worldwide. But that could change soon. The Guardian tells us that researchers have found a combination of drugs and a pilot vaccine that is being tested in a number of countries in Africa. And the combination of those two, the vaccine and the drugs, well, they in the pilot cases, they've cut severe cases down by 70%. And the researchers, they said the trial results were quote unquote striking and actually exceeded their initial hopes for the trial. So some very positive results there.
Very positive results. Also, another uplifting story here, Solange. You found an article about creating a better future for children, specifically young female musicians.
Yeah, Slate tells us about a music teacher who's taken on the task of creating an interactive map of over 500 female composers from around the world, many of whom have been overlooked. Now, she started the project because in her own studies, there were very few women composers and few were ever mentioned in the study books, such as Maria Anna Mozart, who, before being forced to give up music because of her gender, well, she was considered to be as gifted as her brother. Now, the music teacher, she hopes that this project will inspire young female musicians around the globe to create music, thereby lowering the gender inequality gap in the industry. And perhaps my perhaps naive hope as well is that young girls in Afghanistan will somehow, even under the Taliban, be able to find such tools, let alone listen to a little bit of music and dream of a better future.
Yes, let's hope. So over 500 people already on that map.
Hopefully there'll be more.
Yes, many more, hopefully. Yeah. All right, thank you very much, Solange. Solange Moujon with a look what's making headlines. That's it for us in the newsroom. Time now for a quick break. Stay tuned to France 24.